A number of actors, directors, and other film industry professionals have signed a pledge vowing not to work with Israeli film institutions. Joining me to discuss the potential legal implications of the Film Workers for Palestine boycott or the Film Workers Pledge to End Complicity is UKLFI Charitable Trust's Executive Director, Jonathan Turner. Jonathan, great to have some time with you. Before we get into the actual legality side, just remind us of the background to this.
The background really is the armed conflict in the Gaza Strip, initiated by the Hamas-led atrocities on Israel on the 7th of October 2023, and the threats of the Hamas leaders to repeat those atrocities again and again until Israel is destroyed. So the war has been very difficult in heavily built up urban areas, dense population, very difficult to operate in those areas without civilian casualties, which have unfortunately occurred. And this has led to a great deal of hostility to Israel and indeed charges of genocide, which are unfounded, but nevertheless are made, and it seems widely believed. So that's what's led to this initiative by some filmmakers, people in the film business, and they've put forward a boycott pledge, which they persuaded quite a lot of people to sign, which pledges that they refuse to they pledge not to screen films, appear at, or otherwise work with Israeli film institutions, including festivals, cinemas, broadcasters, and production companies that are implicated, they say, in genocide and apartheid against the Palestinian people. Unfortunately, a decision regarding interim measures by the International Court of Justice has been misinterpreted very badly, as it's been said that that decision held that there was a plausible genocide occurring. Now, that is not what it said at all. And indeed, the president of the International Court of Justice has made it clear in an interview on the BBC that that's not what it said. But nevertheless, in fact, this boycott pledge by film workers claims that the International Court of Justice said that there is a plausible case of genocide, and it's on the basis of that film workers have been encouraged to sign up to it. And they say that examples of complicity, this is an asterisk note to the word implicated, these include whitewashing or justifying genocide and apartheid and or partnering with the government committing them. Answers to frequently asked questions about this pledge can be found here, and so on. And they go on to elsewhere to say someone is complicit, they say, if they have omitted to denounce their government. So it does actually, and they recognise that it catches virtually everyone who is in the film business in Israel.
So, how did UK Lawyers for Israel respond? What act is potentially being breached here? And what are the possible legal ramifications for organisations in the industry who join this boycott?
There's different legislation in different countries around the world, and indeed in the United States, there was a letter produced by the Louis D. Brandeis Center, which set out the breaches of US federal and state laws that are created by this boycott. And here in the UK, the legislation, the Equality Act, of 2010 is very broad in many respects. And so UKLFI was contacted by several of its volunteers, drawing attention to this boycott. And one of the volunteers drafted a letter which was then reviewed by several other of our volunteers, including experienced lawyers in the field, and also by myself. And the upshot of this was a letter that we sent, a letter and a memorandum that we sent to around 50 of the most important organisations in the UK's film business, and they included major film production companies, trade unions, and distributors and agents, and so on. So in the UK, it is the Equality Act of 2010 is the principal piece of legislation, and that prohibits discrimination on the basis or because of protected characteristics in a wide range of situations. Now, protected characteristics include nationality, ethnicity, religion, and philosophical belief. And philosophical belief includes belief in the right of the Jewish people to self-determination. That's to say, in the existence of the state of Israel. So that's also people who hold that belief are that's also a protected category, and discriminating against people because they happen to hold that view, or because they are Jewish by ethnicity or religion, or Israeli by nationality. Discrimination against them is prohibited. But it goes wider than that, because the notion of discrimination because of nationality or indeed other protected characteristics includes discrimination in relation to association. So if you discriminate against someone because they have some kind of relationship with a person with a protected characteristic, for example, if you discriminate against someone because their wife is a black person or a Jewish person, that is also prohibited, even though you, the person who's discriminated against, is not yourself Jewish. So that applies also here. If you discriminate against an organization or a person because they employ people who are Jewish, that's also a breach. That's also a discrimination. So, and that's all comes under the category of direct discrimination. And in addition to this, discrimination includes indirect discrimination, where you impose a requirement that bears more severely on a protected people of a protected characteristic than on others. So, for example, again, to take one outside of this area, if you have a requirement that police must be above a certain height, that discriminates against certain ethnicities that tend not to be of that height. So here, if you discriminate against Israeli institutions, you indirectly discriminate against Israeli film stars, against Israeli workers in films, because they are more likely to have a relationship with an Israeli film institution. So the actual reach of the legislation in relation to the boycott is very broad. Anyone complying with the boycott, one way or another, is likely to be breaching the UK Equality Act in the assessment of myself and the various other people who participated in the preparation of this letter.
And if you are in breach, if you are an organization in breach of this, what are the potential implications?
So you are exposed to legal action, you're exposed to claims for damages by people or organizations that suffer financial or other damage as a result. But the implications go actually rather wider than just the exposure to legal action and damages, although that can, of course, be quite serious, because the fact that you're engaging in an activity that gives rise to legal exposure is something that you should notify your insurers. And if you fail to notify your insurers about a material risk, then your insurance policy is liable to be invalid. You may then be unable to recover on your insurance in the event that an insured risk occurs. And also many funders of films, particularly government funders and funders that have some kind of charity or benevolent purpose, have conditions that specify that there must be no discrimination. And so if you engage in the boycott, or people involved in the film that you're making are engaged in the boycott, it may be that you're not entitled to raise funds from important funders. If you've already raised funds, it may be that you could be obliged to return those funds to the funders. So the consequences could be really quite serious for those who get involved in any way, or employ or engage people who get involved with this, frankly, racist boycott.
Warner Brothers Discovery and Paramount are among some of the industry's biggest names who say they won't be taking part in this. How encouraged are you by that? And what's your message to any organizations that have yet to play their hand and say what they're going to do?
Well, we are encouraged, and of course, we commend those organisations who've come out and said that, despite some extent of intimidation almost in the film business by advocates against Israel. So 3 cheers for those people. And incidentally, they have cited their own internal policies against discrimination as reasons why they could not possibly accept this boycott. That actually is a further important consideration over and above the general law that should be taken into account. Any company or entity that is looking at this should also look at their own policies and check that they're in compliance, first of all, with those, as well as in compliance with the law of the land. And really, other organisations should follow that lead, and we urge them to do so, and of course have urged them to do so or at any rate drawn their attention to the reasons why they should do so in the circular letter that we sent out last week.